touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
It is Thursday, which means it is time for a new episode of The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on our YouTube page. If you're not subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button below for me. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not. I will be here every Tuesday and Thursday evening, as always, to break down the latest in Tide football recruiting news on The Process on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. This is a huge weekend for the Crimson Tide as they will travel to Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers. And a lot of Tide fans have revenge on their mind, and deservedly so, because LSU came to Tuscaloosa on last season, defeated the Tide, and after the game, some words were said that really impacted Tide fans. Also, I'm pretty sure the Tide players have that on their mind heading into this matchup as well. And in that statement made by the LSU head coach, Ed Orgeron, he said that the LSU Tigers were going to defeat the Tide on the field and off of it on the recruiting trail. So I wanted to use this episode of The Process to take a look at how each team has fared against one another in this 2021 recruiting cycle. Also take a look at a couple of future 2021 recruiting battles that both of these programs will be involved moving forward in this recruiting cycle. But before I get a chance to dive deeper into that, I just have to do a rundown of a couple of recruiting updates. So we are going to roll into that to get this show started as always. So with that being said, let's get the process started. I have a couple of quick recruiting updates to hit you guys with today, starting with the Tide offering 2022 4-star offensive lineman Alu Ba out of IMG Academy. Be sure to check out my interview with Ba over at touchdowналabama.com. Ba had a lot of good things to say about the Tide's success under Nick Saban. Also talked about the Tide's player development in their offensive line play this season. Be sure to check out that interview over at touchdowналabama.com. It is a free article, so please be sure to read that today. Moving over to a recruit who is actually committed to the Tide in the 2021 recruiting class, and 4-star wide receiver Christian Leary, who posted on Twitter this evening that he cannot relate to recruits who are decommitting at this time. We are seeing a lot of decommitments at this moment, which is expected around this time with National Signing Day during the early signing period, a couple of weeks away now. So we are seeing a lot of those decommitments. As I said, this is not something that is coming out of the blue, especially when you consider how the global pandemic has impacted college football recruiting. But Christian Leary is making it clear that he is 100% locked in with the Tide, as he told me in an interview during the football season that he is a Bama lock 100%. So Christian Leary feels that he has made the right decision by committing to the Tide and plans to sign with the Tide in December, later in the month here. Moving over to another Tide commit here in the 2021 recruiting class, 5-star athlete Quincy McKinstry, who is gearing up to play in the 6A state championship on Friday night. You guys can check him out in the 6A state championship when Pinson Valley takes on Spanish Fort. The game will take place inside Bryant-Denny Stadium on Friday. Kickoff is set for 7:30 p.m. So McKinstry is looking to end his high school football career inside Bryant-Denny and begin his college football career inside Bryant-Denny in the future. So that is a pretty cool note about one of the top commits here for the Tide in the 2021 recruiting class. We are going to close out this set of recruiting updates talking about a Tide commit who is actually from the state of Louisiana, and I am talking about four-star defensive back Kane Williams, who I got an opportunity to catch up with recently to talk about the huge senior season that he has had at John Everett High School. We also talked about the Bama LSU game, so be sure to check out that article over at touchdownalabama.com as well. It is a subscriber-only article, so be sure to pick up your subscription to touchdownalabama.com today. And now we are going to roll into the discussion of the Tide and the Tigers on the recruiting trail. When you look at how the Tide and the Tigers have fared against one another so far in this 2021 recruiting cycle, we are going to start this discussion off by looking at the Tide's 2021 recruiting class. They have one commitment from a recruit who is from the state of Louisiana, and that is Kane Williams, who I talked about earlier in the show. Williams committed to the Tide over Texas A&M and LSU. McKinstry, the five-star athlete out of Princeton Valley in Williams, actually had the LSU Tigers within their top three before they announced commitments to the Crimson Tide. So Alabama has fared well against the Tigers, but LSU has had some success as well. Looking at the top of their 2021 recruiting class, they have a commitment from five-star defensive back Sage Ryan, who many feels the Tide were gaining some momentum for heading into his commitment to the LSU Tigers. So LSU and the Tide have continued to battle it out, as always, on the recruiting trail. Also looking at LSU's 2021 recruiting class, we look at recruits like Chris Hilton, the four-star wide receiver, also Keno Coate, the four-star defensive end, two guys who the Tide were showing interest in earlier in the 2021 recruiting cycle. So we see that both teams have had some success grabbing commitments from recruits who the other school really liked at some point in this recruiting cycle. Moving forward, there are a couple of guys who are going to still consider the Tide and the Tigers, starting here with the guys from Louisiana, starting with four-star wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., who has the Tide and the Tigers included in his top school lists. Texas A&M also still looks to be a huge player in Thomas' recruitment as well. We see that the Tide's coaching staff has made it clear that they want to add another wide receiver to the group of Christian Leary, Corey Brooks, and AJ Hall in this 2021 recruiting cycle. And Brian Thomas Jr. has been one of their top targets for a long time. Jr. is a four-star wide receiver, a physical, athletic, long, strong wide receiver out of Walker High School in Louisiana. Of course, the LSU Tigers do not want this type of talent to leave the state, but many feel that the sanctions that the LSU Tigers are set to face in the future will have an impact on Brian Thomas's recruitment. So that is something to keep your eyes on, something to note in his recruitment. Texas A&M still looks to be a huge player because when you look at their offense, they really like long, lengthy wide receivers like Brian Thomas, and he really fits in with their offense. But the Tide has shown that they can really use their wide receivers over the last couple of years. Really, under Steve Sarkisian, they have shown that their wide receivers are weapons, and they use their wide receivers to be weapons. That ride out group is really a spectacular group, and I'm pretty sure that impresses Brian Thomas Jr. as well. LSU is still in the running, but Texas A&M and Alabama look really strong in Brian Thomas Jr.'s recruitment. Another guy from the state of Louisiana who is considering the Tide and the Tigers is Mason Smith, a massive five-star defensive tackle, a kid who moves really well for a guy his size. He will announce his commitment on December 16th during the early signing period. A lot of people feel LSU is going to get his commitment in, his signature, but the Tide's coaching staff has done a good job of recruiting Smith. They look to be right there, at least in the mix, heading into his commitment decision on December 16th. I will end this discussion by talking about Terrion Arnold. Of course, he released that top 5 on December 1st at the beginning of the month. LSU was included. I was a bit surprised that the Tigers were included in his top 5 because he does not really talk about them. But like I said a lot of times here in this 2021 recruiting cycle, when you look at these kids growing up, even when I was growing up, I'm from the state of Alabama. LSU has always been DBU. I know that Alabama has a stake to that claim because when you look at the defensive backs Alabama has been able to produce recently, but it still matters that LSU is considered DBU. It is what it is. I know that you can make the argument for Alabama very easily. You can make the argument for Ohio State as well, but LSU is DBU in terms of guys growing up, especially guys growing up right now. So that is something to pay attention to. I do feel that is one of the reasons that LSU is listed in Terry Arnold's top 5. This is a kid who will announce a decision on February 3rd. He wants to take some more visits. It would not surprise me if he took a visit to Baton Rouge as well as taking a visit to Tuscaloosa, because he wants to get to Tuscaloosa before he makes that official decision. But the Tigers and the Tide are going to continue to battle it out. We have seen this so many times on the recruiting trail. You can look at Alabama's roster and you will see a lot of guys from the state of Louisiana, including Dylan Moses, Christian Harris, Slade Bolden. So you're going to see some Louisiana products on Alabama's roster. So we are going to continue to see these teams just continue to try to pull talent from one another state as well, because we have seen LSU come inside the state of Alabama and pull some recruits recently, including 4-star defensive lineman Eric Taylor out of here at Trussville High School in Trussville, Alabama. So I am interested in seeing both of these teams continue to battle it out, as Ed Orgeron said. As Ed Orgeron said after he defeated the Tide in Tuscaloosa last season, they are going to continue to try to defeat the Tide on the field and off of it on the recruiting trail. That will put a bow on this episode of The Process. Be sure to leave a like. Be sure to hit that subscribe button below. If you're not, then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Get your hands on our yearly Prince magazine issue. Also read our in-depth draft projections, our in-depth scouting reports on the top commits and on all of the top commits in each recruiting class. You get a chance to enjoy all of that and more with a subscription at touchdownalabama.com. Then go pull out your mobile device and download the Touchdown Alabama app. It is located in the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store, so be sure to download the Touchdown Alabama app today. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.
Process.